Hey,
Hey,
Coach
Coach
Trevor.
Elliott, it's David Hood. Just in regards to the running game and your self scouting, did you guys find anything, see anything that you think, maybe we need to do this better, tweak, and do you expect any lineup changes heading into this week?
Not anticipating any lineup changes. The biggest thing we discovered is, when you're talking about the offensive line, run game, offensive football, it's all 11 on the same page. And a lot of times, it was one breakdown. A guy loses his fundamentals in a play, results in an unblocked guy. And then as you study, especially the last couple of weeks with DJ in there and Trevor being out, you saw where they were committed to stopping the run. So as soon as there was any kind of run action, you'd have a safety fit and you'd have a nickel Sam fitting. And DJ, still learning the process of how to manage the run game. I thought there were some opportunities where we could, throw the ball on the perimeter, trying to keep those guys honest. So it was just a couple of things that we're going to tweak just in terms of making sure from a fundamental standpoint, we can continue to work those things, have a good understanding, maybe simplify just a little bit, some of what we're doing. But the biggest thing is just challenging our guys that every time we snap the ball, all 11 have to be on the same page, whether it's the run game or the pass game.
Hey, Coach, it's Trevor Gross from CUTigers.com. Braden Galloway was just saying that Trevor looked good, like he hasn't missed a beat. Is that how you feel, like he hasn't missed any time at all?
So what we saw in practice when we were out there, obviously we had the weekend off, excited to get back out there. But man, he came back with a ton of energy. Just you could tell that obviously he was disappointed that he wasn't able to be there for his team. Not trying to put any added pressure, but just excited and appreciative of the opportunity to be back out there. So he did look good, moving around good. But we'll know more, as we get into this week.
Coach, as you look at breakdown Florida State's defense, obviously losing Marvin Wilson, he's a hard guy to replace, but they still have some dudes on that front line, and Kane Doe and Janarius Robinson, and a pretty formidable secondary with guys like Asante Samuel, and they just got Nasruddin back last week as well.
Yeah, it seems like they got a ton of guys. As you're watching the tape, you're like, man, who's number 10? Who's number 14? Who's number 36? You just see a bunch of guys that they're rolling in there, but definitely up front, it's what you're used to seeing out of Florida State with just the two big, large bookends, that can rush the passer, play well in the run, and then they're very big on the inside. All their guys are 300 plus, and Cooper's very, very hard to move, especially if you're trying to block him with one person. You're gonna have to double him to move him around. Very fast on the back end, playing a lot of guys at a lot of different positions, so it gives them some depth. But definitely, when you cut on the tape, that they're very, very talented. You can see that there's been a couple situations where they had a couple communication issues. Some teams have presented some problems, but we're anticipating that we're going to get their best effort. They're going to be ready to play versus us, and they're very, very talented up front. I think the strength of their defense is that defensive line. I know that Marvin's out, but they still got Durden. They got the transfer young man from Mississippi State. So they're still very talented and very deep on that D line.
Hey, Tony, this is Grace Rayner with The Athletic. I think it was after the Notre Dame game, you were talking about how Cornell Powell's, I think you had referenced like mentality or just kind of his mindset had changed over the years. And I wanted to see if you could just elaborate on what exactly that looked like and the specifics of kind of what that means.
I think when you look at Cornell, came in a highly recruited young man, then came into a situation, man, where it's competition, every single day, every single year. And it took him a little bit of time to kind of transition to accepting that competition on a daily basis. Very, very talented, very, very skilled. And each player is different. I think, some guys don't get a fair shake because they're around some exceptional guys like a Sammy Watkins that shows in here day one. You pull them out the box, as coach says, and you just let them go. Then there's some other guys that have to be developed. I think for Cornell, it was a process of just being developed, from a mental standpoint of understanding, what the expectation is and the commitment that it takes day in and day out. And I think now that he had his opportunity in fall camp and now he's having some success, I think the light has really, really clicked for him. So the biggest thing for Cornell, the challenge has always been, man, just go be the best you can be every single day, and don't take a play off. Don't worry about anybody else's situation. Just focus on what you can control. And I think he's really bought into that. And now you're seeing him, be productive and being a guy that we're leaning on right now.
Hey, Tony, it's Matt. Not only running game, but just total takeaways from the bye week, what were some of the big things that y'all kind of took away from self-study?
Biggest thing is up front. In fairness to the offensive line, we got to push that depth. I mean, those guys are playing a lot of plays. You look at a guy like Jackson. Jackson played I think almost 100 snaps when you include his special team snaps. That's a lot of football in back-to-back weeks when you're playing that many snaps. So just pushing the young guys, to get to a point to where they can be functional for us, so we can spell some guys and keep them healthy. Biggest thing is just making sure that we just get back to the details and the precision of what we're doing. Obviously, every week we got to tweak the game plan just a little bit to match what the opponent is giving us, but making sure that we don't lose sight of the little things. At the end of the day, you can have the best schemes. Anybody can win on a chalkboard, but at the end of the day, it comes down to one-on-one matchups and being able to win your one-on-one matchups. And it's going to be a combination of effort, but then also having good techniques and really just focusing on us. Looking at the self-scout, seeing where areas where we can improve. And last couple of games, obviously, just the production in the run game. But again, we've been challenged. We understand and getting our guys to understand how teams are starting to play us. How some people are trying to play over the top of the counter, play behind the counter. How as soon as they see run action, they're going to trigger in the box. Quarterback's got to do a good job of controlling that seventh defender whenever possible, and then backs got to go make plays. They got to be disciplined. We talk about the running game. A lot of the emphasis goes on the offensive line, but when you look at the outside zone concept for us, really the backs were the culprit. Just not being quite as disciplined. So that's an area that I challenge those guys, challenge myself to make sure that we're just taking care of Clemson and not trying to do too much, but at the same time making sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to do.
And how do you,
Tony, it's David again. Do you expect, in that vein of trying to get some of those younger guys playing time, Walker Parks came in, played some big snaps at Notre Dame. Do you expect him to be one of those guys that maybe we'll start to see a little bit more going forward?
Definitely, he's a guy. Like you said, he's played some big snaps for us throughout the season. Feels like he's a guy that's versatile. We feel like we can play him in multiple spots. He's a guy. Trotter's a guy that we got to push to make sure that we have that interior depth inside for our guys, because not just Jackson, but Bockhorst and Putnam are playing a lot of snaps. So he's one. Rayburn's a guy that we got to push, to get some good snaps out. So Paul Teo's another guy that we got to push to try and get some snaps. So there's about 4 or 5 guys we're really pushing, but I'd say the lead dog right now would be Walker Parks, just because of what he's shown thus far in the game situation.
Hey, Coach, it's Trevor again. It's been rocky for Joseph and Frank this season. Do you think that this last stretch of these last 3 games of the regular season, they might finally be able to stay healthy and contribute to the offense?
Definitely hope so. Those were 2 guys coming into the season that we were very, very, high on, had great expectations for. And it kind of started in fall camp. They went into protocol, missed some time there. And then both of them have been battling, some nagging stuff, nagging injuries. And hopefully this open week right here was an opportunity for them to get back healthy. Obviously, Frank's in a different situation with his foot, maybe a couple of weeks or so. I'll let Coach Sweeney update that whenever he speaks. I'm not sure the actual timeline there, but Joe, says he feels good. So we'll just get out there and push those guys, but definitely hope to get those guys back in, get them some action as we go down the stretch.
Hey, Tony, it's Josh from the Post-Courier. What was your reaction when you heard about the news out of South Carolina last night with Muschamp? And would that be a job you'd be potentially interested in?
Well, first and foremost, just you feel for Coach Muschamp, you feel for all those coaches. I've said it before, man, it's a coaching fraternity. Nobody, you don't want to see anybody. I went through it when I was at Furman, where we got fired, man, and there's so much uncertainty, unknown. You start to question yourself, and man, that's not a good situation for anybody. Then you think about the players, man. Those players, went there to play for him. They're invested, they're invested in him. They're invested in the program, and it's been a crazy year. So obviously, I don't know all the details surrounding that, but definitely my heart goes out to the coaches and the players because again, this wasn't what they were working towards. They were working towards a different outcome, and unfortunately, it didn't unfold that way. And, right now, as the second part of that question. This is the type of year where I get frustrated just because my name gets thrown out there, and you guys know. Hopefully, my track record speaks for itself. And man, I'm focused on these players and this staff right here. They've been too good for me to even consider any other jobs at this time. So right now, man, I'm focusing on Clemson, being the best that I can be. As we started this conversation, man, we got some things we got to clean up offensively. That's my focus right now.
Tony, this is Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports. As a coach, how often you check on these day to day, just psychologically, going through COVID injuries? I imagine Xavier had a had a big problem, but just getting through this.
Was a question you asking how often do you check in on the players?
Yeah, or just,
Every day.
Yeah.
It's every day, and to be honest with you, there's probably contact points with the players multiple times a day from different personnel. Just because one, I know how I'm dealing with it, going through it with how it's impacted my family and the changes, and with my boys being young, and they're navigating going back to school, and my wife's at home trying to manage that. I know the pressure it puts on me. I know what it's like, coming here every day and just trying to make sure that you're being as safe as you can, protecting the bubble. So man, you got to check on those guys every single day and multiple times, throughout the day. And that's what's so great about the way Coach Sweeney has constructed this program, that there's a lot of eyes, right? Even before COVID, there was a ton of eyes that were on these young men, so that we can, possibly identify an issue before it becomes, a major problem. But definitely now with COVID, there's a heightened sense of urgency just to make sure we're vigilant, we're paying attention, and then we're also, creating an environment where it's okay for you to not be okay. It's okay for you to ask for help. It's okay for you to go talk to somebody, because ultimately that's the only way that we're going to get through this, is together and everybody on the same page.
Does it make it necessarily easier since you guys are winning? In other words, with a team that wasn't winning and at a high level, there'd be guys that would check out, at least mentally.
I think there's challenges. Everybody talks about the winning, but there's challenges in winning too, because you got to continue to be consistent in everything that you're doing to maintain that level of performance. So I think it's just as challenging, because now when you let's say you're having success, it's easier for you to let your guard down. So you got to be even more vigilant to make sure that you're constantly communicating to these young men the importance of protecting themselves, protecting the bubble, and then ultimately too, making sure that you're providing them all the resources. If for instance, you do have a situation where a young man, does test positive, you got to provide him all the support that you need. So I wouldn't say just because you're winning, that it's any easier.
Great.
It actually creates some additional challenges.
Yeah. Thank you. Good luck.
Tony, Larry Williams here. You mentioned the depth on the offensive line. Have you guys given any thought to tinkering with the starting lineup with the offensive line?
Right now we've had some discussions. Nothing's formalized in terms of making a change. The biggest thing is we need all those guys to prepare and be ready to play. What you would consider starting snaps. I mean, it doesn't matter if you come in the second quarter. I mean, you're in the game, you're considered a starter. So I think the biggest thing for us is just pushing those guys to be ready to play those meaningful snaps. And as those guys get ready, once they get ready, then you'll have opportunities to discuss that. But nothing formal. Other than, hey, we just got to get more than one guy ready to play so we can spell some of these guys.
You mentioned how much those starters have been playing. I think the Cade Stewart, like if you compare his total snaps to Pollard at the same point last year, Cade has like 200 more snaps. Looking back, did the cumulative effect of 6 straight games, and I think 5 of them 4-quarter competitive games, did that have an effect on the line, sort of looking back, especially going to the Notre Dame game, I guess?
I think the cumulative effect is just some of the miscues that we've had. We've put ourselves in some situations, where we turn the ball over. We sputter a couple times and don't put points on the board. Therefore, now you're not playing complementary football with the defense. And in the last couple of games, it's been a situation where we come out the gate fast, but also the opponent does too. And so then now we're just trying to play complementary football. Put points on the board. Try to help the defense as much as we can. So I think it's a cumulative effect of how the games have gone. And I'd say there's things that we've contributed to that too. Especially in my position, putting the ball on the ground, a couple of turnovers that have resulted in points. But we've scored too many times for the opponent. So I think it's just a combination of a lot of things that's forcing those guys to be able to play. And when you're in those games and it's going back and forth and it's tight, as coaches, we have to be transparent and honest. Man, you got a comfort level with certain guys, so you roll those guys. Whereas there's some situations where you may have to force the issue and spell those guys and expect those young guys to grow up in that moment.
Hey, Coach, it's Trevor again. It's Trevor again, Coach. You brought Chez Malusi in for a couple plays late in the Notre Dame game. He's missed some games this season for various reasons, but it seems like you have a high level of trust and comfort for a young guy in that situation.
Yeah, no doubt. Chez was a guy that coming in, I really saw some progress moving forward, and then was doing well early in camp. Then he goes down with the shoulder, and then kind of battled back. And he had some, just some family stuff go on that he needed to be a part of. But now that I think he's healthy, he's got his confidence back. He's a guy that's going to push, and I really need all those guys to be ready. Kobe and Mikey as well. Have to be ready to go in the game, and so it's a different year in terms of a hierarchy that you would work through. Now they all got to be ready. But Ches is a guy that every day that goes by, he's just continuing to show me that he has the confidence to be able to go in there and play in any situation.
Tony, could McFadden play guard if he had to?
We try to cross train all those guys. I think both those tackles could move inside if we needed to. We got some versatility. Cade's a guy that can move out to tackle. So we got a little bit of versatility, and nobody's hitting the panic button. I think when you really go back and look at it, teams were going to stop Travis, and then Travis, made some decisions that kind of stopped themselves in terms of seeing too much and cutting too early. Quarterbacks got to do a good job of managing. And again, it's the way we're built. Sometimes you want to force the ball to Travis, but sometimes you're forcing it in a 7 or 8 man box, and you're not going to have success there. So you got to throw the ball on the perimeter. So really just getting back to, the core fundamentals of who we are, I think it's going to help us going forward. And just guys, accepting the challenge of, hey, let's get back to the fundamentals and the details.
Got time for one more?
Tony, not speaking about any particular job, but just in general, just how do you handle trying to focus on your responsibility? And you've said you want to be a head coach potentially down the road, but with the early signing day, teams want to get things done quickly. Just how do you try to balance that in your situation?
One, I don't answer my phone, to be honest with you, and I just am transparent with people, and I tell them, hey, look, this is who I am. I'm focusing on what I'm doing. Stay off of the Twitter stuff. Kind of remind my family, hey, don't say anything, bring me up, just let it be. Because again, it's about Clemson. It's about these young men. We're in 2020, man. These guys have invested so much during this pandemic, and it would be really selfish. There'll be a time and a place, but right now, we're talking about what's today? It's November 16th. And we got to bounce back, and we got to go focus on the biggest game of the year, which is Florida State.